The United States, 50 states, 50 sets of law. Which law applies? Well, takes us to this week's case. Involves a real man, Adam Fitzer. Adam was employed by Papa John's. He was delivering a pizza when he was involved in a serious accident, and unfortunately, he died. His family brought claim. Now, the policy which applied to the car that Adam was driving was a policy written by Papa John's. It was purchased by Papa John's. And it provided for uninsured motorist coverage. Now, uninsured motorist coverage is a form of coverage that's available under automobile policies that basically provide if the guy responsible for the accident didn't have coverage, then the policy applying to the car that was damaged would pay for the injuries to the person who was driving the car, or pay in this instance for the damages arising from their death. The amount of coverage was $1 million. Now, the family for Adam brought claim against Papa John's and said, gee whiz, we would like to be reimbursed for the damages we're suffering as a result of the loss of Adam. Papa John's responded by saying, well, fine and dandy, but not so fast, but Kentucky law applies. Kentucky law applies? Yes, Kentucky law applies. Kentucky law applies because the policy was purchased by Papa John's. Papa John's home headquarters is in Kentucky. And when they negotiated the policy, they negotiated it in Kentucky. When they paid for the policy, they paid for it from their office in Kentucky. The policy was delivered to Kentucky. Well, on the other side of that, through their lawyers, the family for Adam argued, no, North Dakota law applies. North Dakota law applies because the accident took place in North Dakota, and because when this policy was written, it was contemplated that it would apply to employees of Papa John who were outside of Kentucky as well as inside Kentucky, and whether that employee was in California, Nevada, North Dakota, the policy would apply to the accidents. Therefore, the people who wrote the policy envisioned that the law from various states would apply. Okay, case went forward, went to a trial court. Trial court was a U.S. District Court. The judge considered the various arguments, came away and said, family, you're right, family, you're right. Accident took place in North Dakota, and when this policy was written, we could envision that a claim would be brought in a state outside of Kentucky. Well, it was appealed, went up to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. There, the court heard the same arguments, and there the court came away and said, Papa John, you are right, because of all the reasons you point out. You're headquartered in Kentucky, the policy was delivered to Kentucky, the policy was paid for from Kentucky, it was negotiated in Kentucky, Kentucky applies. And the two principal parties in this transaction as to the insurance policy are Papa John's and American Casualty, who actually was the insurance company. So as to those two, they are governed by Kentucky law, and the policy itself is governed by Kentucky law. And since Kentucky law doesn't provide coverage, in this instance, because of the circumstances, there is no coverage. So what do we learn from this? Very important thing, that when a claim is brought under a contract, the law that applies is not necessarily the law where the incident or the event occurred that gives rise to a claim. Many contracts have what's referred to as choice of law. And you know when you sometimes do that click and you're buying something online and you click and agree to the terms, many times included in that, buried in there, is a choice of law which indicates if you sue the party who is selling you something, you have to be governed by the law from the state where those guys are located. A lot of people aren't aware of that. It also comes to play in insurance claims. We saw that here. And many times people are unaware that simply because the accident happens in a given state, the law of that state may not be applied to the actual claim that is brought. Hey, we bring you this case, we bring cases every week, so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.